The new Electro god of DPS, Xiangli Yao, will be dropping very soon, but through the new 1.2 event, we are able to test play him, which allows us to see what he is capable of. Also, we do have access to his signature weapon along with his entire kit. So with that, I'll be breaking down his kit, going over his best team synergies, the value of his signature weapon along with alternatives, and his overall value on your account. Just in regards to the Xiangli Yao test play within the event, bear in mind that he is going up against an Electro type enemy, which is an enemy you usually would never use an Electro character to go up against. Secondly, we only are able to use Xiangli Yao during the battle, with Spectral Rover joining in later, but she really does nothing for Xiangli Yao. So essentially, even though Xiangli Yao is dealing some decent numbers in the battle, we can definitely expect much more damage when he has a full team with better echoes and is going up against a non-Electro enemy. So that is something to just consider when testing him out. Now, just before we jump into it, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more WutheringWaves content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now, Xiangli Yao is an Electro main DPS that deals a lot of damage scaling of Resonance Liberation damage. His basic attack string consists of 5 basic attacks, with the final attack being a beam, so he does have a bit of range with the last hit. His standard resonance skill Deduction is just a quick Electro blade attack that deals damage and has decent range. But Xiangli Yao does have an enhanced resonance skill being Decipher, which you can activate through the Forte circuit. Xiangli Yao is able to fill up the Forte gauge through both his basic attacks and resonance skill, which makes it extremely easy to access his enhanced resonance skill. So unlike Calcharo, where you would only be able to fill up the Forte gauge through the resonance skill, which is just a massive issue, Xiangli Yao offers multiple ways and the gauge does fill up pretty quick too. Once the gauge has been filled, the enhanced skill Decipher will be ready to use immediately, even if the standard skill Deduction is still on cooldown. Meaning you can use the standard skill straight into the enhanced skill if the gauge has been filled, and then straight into the standard skill again. So with the standard skill being a quick slash, it does make the whole sequence quite smooth to pull off. Now, similarly to Changli's grounded attacks in True Sight, where she would blink towards the enemy and deal a slash of fusion damage, Xiangli Yao's enhanced skill will allow him to leap straight at the enemy and will deal damage scaling of Resonance Liberation damage whilst in midair, then finishing the combo with a ground slam that can throw small enemies off their feet. The leap also does cover a lot of ground, so you'll be able to close large gaps between you and enemies very quick and quite often with the enhanced skill. Now, with Xiangli Yao's Resonance Liberation, it does work a bit similar to Calcharo's Resonance Liberation, but is ultimately a significant upgrade. When you pop the ultimate, it deals a big burst of Electro damage and transforms the Forte gauge into a 5-part gauge. The gauge is filled up with enhanced basic attacks, and once the gauge is full, you activate the resonance skill Law of Rains, which deals a massive AoE electric attack scaling off Resonance Liberation damage. The amazing aspect of the enhanced basic attack string is that it will consist of 3 enhanced basic attacks opposed to the standard 5 basic attacks, meaning you fill the Forte gauge insanely quick since it just requires 1 enhanced basic attack string to fill. Now, as you activate the Law of Rain skill, you will consume 1 of 3 hypercubes, which are obtained the moment you activate the Liberation. Once you have activated the Law of Rain skill 3 times, which will consume all 3 hypercubes, the Liberation will end. Alternatively, the Liberation would end after 24 seconds. However, it takes on average 5 seconds to complete the basic attack string whilst in the Liberation state and to activate the Law of Rain skill. So it does leave you with 9 seconds of room to ensure you can deal the maximum damage possible with the Liberation. So in contrast to Calcharo, where the ultimate only lasts for 10 seconds and more often than not, you wouldn't deal the maximum damage possible since you are prone to being interrupted, just shows how significantly better Xiangli Yao's Liberation is. Now, if you are thinking Xiangli Yao would be prone to being interrupted just as much as Calcharo, well, that's where his inherent skill kicks in. As when intuition is triggered by the Resonance Liberation, Xiangli Yao's resistance to interruption is enhanced. Intuition is essentially the name of Xiangli Yao's Liberation state. So the inherent skill will activate the moment you have popped the Liberation and will end when you have either used all 3 hypercubes or after 24 seconds. Now, this is the inherent skill that Calcharo should have received instead of damage reduction, since it is pretty much essential for when a character is on a time limit with their strongest ability and wouldn't want anything interrupting them. So it's great this time round Xiangli Yao has this inherent skill, as it will make it much more easier to deal damage whilst in the secondary state. In addition, the animation of the basic attacks and Law of Rain's resonance skill look insane and don't waste that much time, which allows you to go in and out of the intuition state pretty quick. Lastly, in regards to the amount of damage the Liberation can deal, the damage multiplier of the initial hit is 737% at level 1. To put it into perspective, Havoc Rover, which is known to deal an enormous amount of Resonance Liberation damage, has a damage multiplier of 765% at level 1. So Xiangli Yao being not that far off just means with the right setup and when the Liberation has been leveled up, will also deal an enormous amount of damage and will then continue into his intuition state to deal enhanced basic attacks and 3 massive AoE attacks from the Law of Rain skill. Now as for the second inherent skill, Xiangli Yao gains 5% electro damage bonus after casting the resonance skill for 8 seconds and is stackable for up to 4 times. So considering how quick you can cast the standard resonance skill Deduction, and the enhanced resonance skill Decipher being able to reset the skill cooldown after being used, means most of the time you'll have a 20% electro damage bonus up, which is a significant boost in damage. Overall, it does seem like there's a ton of stuff happening within Xiangli Yao's kit, but he is quite simple to play and will be able to deal a lot of damage, especially when accompanied by passives and little aspects of his kit like shortening the basic attack string during his secondary state that just makes him a great DPS character. Now as for Xiangli Yao's signature weapon, it provides a 24.3% crit rate main stat at max level, alongside a 12% attribute damage increase and a massive 48% resonance liberation damage increase when activating the liberation. The liberation buff lasts for 8 seconds but can be extended by an additional 15 seconds, as each cast of the resonance skill will extend the duration by 5 seconds. So this weapon paired with Xiangli Yao specifically would be perfect since, as I mentioned earlier, it does take 5 seconds on average to max the Forte gauge and to pop the Law of Rain's resonance skill. So the duration of the liberation buff should definitely last the entire duration of the ultimate, which means this weapon would be amazing for Xiangli Yao and is worth picking up if you would like to main him. As for alternatives, you have the Abyss Surges being the only other 5-star gauntlets in the game, which provides an attack main stat along with an increase in energy regen, basic attack damage bonus and resonant skill damage bonus. So the fact that Xiangli Yao would be able to utilize all of these stats from this weapon at some point during his rotation would make it a solid alternative overall. The Battle Pass weapon is especially a great alternative since it provides a crit rate main stat and can increase resonance liberation damage by 18% for 15 seconds when casting the resonance skill. So considering Xiangli Yao activates his resonance skill very often, the resonance liberation buff would have 100% uptime. So this weapon is literally the scaled down version of his signature, which makes it a great weapon as an alternative. The last decent alternative would be the Holo Mirage, which provides an attack main stat along with an additional 9% attack increase and 9% defense increase from the passive. So it is a decent choice as your last resort since it provides a small boost in attack and some defense. As for team synergies, the best team without a doubt would consist of Xiangli Yao, Yinlin and Verina. Considering Yinlin will be able to increase electro damage bonus by 20% and resonance liberation damage bonus by 25%, Xiangli Yao will be able to fully utilize the outro skill and it will provide him with a significant buff in damage. In addition, Xiangli Yao plays exactly the same as Calcharo, in the sense that they both want long periods of field time, especially when they have popped their liberation. So Yinlin dealing coordinated electro attacks will provide Xiangli Yao with the field time he requires. If you aren't fortunate enough to have the Electro Queen on your account, any character that provides a buff in liberation damage would be an alternative, which is going to be Changli and Jianxin. Changli is able to provide a fusion damage increase by 20% and a resonance liberation damage increase by 25%, so Xiangli Yao would still benefit from the liberation increase. Also, since Changli can be quick swapped into just deal burst damage, Xiangli Yao and Changli do have potential to work quite nicely together, since you would just use Changli's resonance skills into the heavy attack when the gauge is filled and then into the ultimate. Now with Jianxin, you would be gaining a much more significant liberation buff of 38%. Of course, there will be a drop in DPS with Jianxin, but she does pack a ton of utility within her kit. So in terms of survivability, Jianxin would definitely be the best partner for Xiangli Yao whilst providing a massive liberation buff. As for the free-to-play option, Yuanwu being the scaled-down version of Yinlin would be a viable option, since he deals off-field damage and takes up hardly any field time. So if you don't have any of the 5 stars to play as a sub for Xiangli Yao, Yuanwu would be a decent option. Now as for the echoes, you simply want to use a 5-piece Void Thunder set to allow Xiangli Yao to deal the most damage possible. For Calcharo mains, you will definitely be able to swap over the echoes to Xiangli Yao since they both want the same stats. As for the builds, you can either go with 43311 or 44111 since there are 2 4-cost echoes in the Void Thunder set. As for the stats on a 43311 build, either crit rate or crit damage for the 4 cost, electro damage bonus for 1 3 cost, and either electro damage bonus again or attack percent for the second 3 cost. Considering Xiangli Yao's inherent skill does provide some flexibility with echo stats since you gain up to a 20% electro damage bonus, means you can use an attack percent 3 cost instead of going for 2 electro damage bonus 3 cost echoes to even out the electro damage bonus to attack ratio. Then with the 1 cost, attack percent will be the way to go. Alternatives to the full Void Thunder set would be either the full Lingering Tune set or a 2-piece Void Thunder set and a 2-piece Lingering Tune set. The 5-piece Lingering Tune set would provide an attack increase of up to a max of 30%, as long as Xiangli Yao remains on the field, and a 60% damage increase from the outro skill. So the fact that Xiangli Yao will remain on the field for long periods of time, the Lingering Tune set will be great on him, just as it is on Calcharo. With the 2-piece Void Thunder set and 2-piece Lingering Tune set, you would be gaining a 10% electro damage bonus increase and a 10% attack increase. So it is definitely a viable build, but you would be much better off with either a 5-piece Lingering Tune set or a 5-piece Void Thunder set. Overall, Xiangli Yao as a free DPS character holds an insane amount of value, since not only does he feel so much better to play than Calcharo, but he will deal much more damage due to high multipliers and it being much easier to deal high amounts of damage. So just with the test run during the 1.2 event, it's pretty much given that Xiangli Yao has power crept Calcharo and will be a DPS players should definitely build if they require a DPS to help in either endgame content or to just simply have fun with. Even now, it's still a bit of a shock with how great of a character Xiangli Yao is and being for free. So it does have me definitely looking forward to future events and other possible free characters we may receive. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more WutheringWaves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment down below on your thoughts on Xiangli Yao and if you are planning to use him as one of your main DPS characters. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.